Great, Jen, thanks so much for meeting with me today. Really excited for our conversation and just to see your really impressive use of VT Docs as it pertains to contracts management. So before we dive in and kind of see a few examples, why don't you just briefly explain kind of who you are, what you do at Parker, maybe what your business unit does, just to set the stage.
Sure. Thanks, Kyle, for asking me to participate. Happy to share my story. My name is Jennifer Alvarado. I'm a contract specialist for Parker Hannifin, their aerospace group division. I support all the aerospace divisions with various activities related to terms and conditions or interpretation of policy, also administration of different softwares, Visible Thread being one of them. And I've been in this role for 3 years and at Parker for 8 years. Previously, I was a contracts administrator for the aftermarket team.
Excellent. And how long have you been using Visible Thread, out of curiosity, Jen?
I used it when I was a CA as part of the aftermarket team, but on a much smaller scale. Now I'm using it a few times a week. So I'd say probably for the past couple years, a few times a week.
Awesome. Always great to hear. We love kind of hearing from our users like you. And I certainly have a soft spot for contracts users as well, because I was a former contracts user myself. So let's do it, Jen. Would love to get into the software, get into your day-to-day. So we kind of covered 3 really interesting examples of how you're employing VT Docs today. So if I could ask you to share your screen, bring VT Docs up, and then we'll attack these examples one by one.
Sure.
So I think to start, Jen, we were having a great conversation about non-disclosure agreements, NDAs. You work through a lot of them. Most CAs, most contracts managers know there's a huge volume that we go through, but we also have to treat each one kind of on its own merits. We're looking for certain language that maybe presents risk that we want to redline or adjust before we sign anything. So in this case, it looks like we have an NDA uploaded into VT Docs. So why don't you just quickly explain to the group what this search dictionary here in the middle is looking for, and then what you're looking to get out of the output before we then download this report. Take it away.
Okay. In the review of NDAs, I normally use our legal guidance, and our legal guidance has given us a document basically with all the different types of terms that you would see in an NDA and what our Parker policy is regarding those terms. So instead of, manually looking side by side as I'm reading the NDA, I created an NDA checklist dictionary where I incorporated the term of the NDA and whatever pertinent notes our legal guidance has given, and then also any additional language that we may need to incorporate. So it's been really useful because instead of going and doing this manually, I have the terms already pre-populated onto the Word document. So all the notes are there. And if there are redundancies in the terminology, I don't have to keep going back to my notes document. It just populates the note again and again every time that term is located in the document.
Really well said there, Jen. For those who aren't aware of what a dictionary is, it's a collection of search terms as well as guidance that users can customize. So right down the middle here, this checklist dictionary, we're seeing these categories, we're seeing purpose, we're seeing restrictions on use, we're looking at ownership. So Jen, why don't you just expand on just 1 or 2 of those categories for me, hit those plus signs. So in this case, we're looking for search terms like purpose. In NDAs, that's very common. Looking for words like confidential information, looking for words like intellectual property. So wherever we see those in an NDA, visible threat will flag it, and will also provide that guidance that you were referring to, provided by your legal team. So that should hopefully kind of set the stage here. So now let's download that annotated doc and get into this actionable output.
Okay, so we'll use the dictionary category as the comment author, generate the document. And then it populates into your downloads folder. And I can drag it over from my other screen here. And so
Awesome.
you'll see the NDA and all of the comment bubbles with the notes from my legal guidance notes document. So it kind of gives you things to look out for, different language, and also what is our actionable items, delete the provisions, and, just our notes about, how we should proceed with redlining, those kind of clauses.
Really nice, Jen. And so what I want kind of the audience to see here is the NDA is presented here verbatim. There's nothing hidden. Read that NDA. We're just teeing you up to potentially take action, but you still have agency, Jen, don't you? You can redline accordingly, but now, yeah, you have that guidance here. What do we need to be looking out for? What do we need to add? What should we subtract? It's a great example of effective dictionary use cases. And then maybe the only other thing I would ask, Jen, just to kind of put a bow on this is, you mentioned before VT, you had the NDA up on another screen, you had your guidance up, but just how does this compare to your past life in terms of time, accuracy, efficiency, and maybe just consistency of review too?
It's a big time saver because I would have the legal guidance document on one screen, the NDA on another screen. I'd be reading through, and every NDA is templated differently, so it's not necessarily going to be in the order that my legal guidance document is. So I found myself scrolling up and down, trying to find that term. Of course, you become familiar with where the terms are, but still there is a value in eliminating all that scroll time, because then you lose your place and you're going back and forth. In this way, especially since I'm already familiar with the legal guidance document, when I see the note populate and click on it, I'm already familiar with, what note it is and what the general guidance is going to be. But seeing it repeated in that manner, it helps you get familiar and you don't lose your place, and you have all the information right in front of you on one screen, at one time.
Excellent. Well said. And maybe one final point and we'll move on. I think what you said there was important, Jen. You were pretty familiar with the legal guidance, with that playbook. When I was in the space and I was newer to NDAs, I was newer to redlining, for any organizations that are onboarding less experienced or just new talent that's less familiar with your processes and procedures, what a great way to make sure that they're at least getting a nice starting point and consistently apply those principles if they haven't been doing this for a couple of years like you have, Jen. So it's a great example, great way to kick things off. So Jen, why don't we do this? We have our NDA use case, we have our kind of word output use case nailed down. Why don't you walk us through a really interesting and powerful document comparison use case that we were talking about kind of earlier?
Okay. So we have various instances where we do doc comparisons, and I think the most obvious is when you have specs or terms and conditions that you're renewing. But recently I completed a doc comparison for a different type of document. It was actually comparing different job descriptions for human resources, HPT, to just compare two different job descriptions from two different organizations, and see what the differences are, what the similarities were. So I can go ahead and show that.
So what Jen's doing here, for those who aren't aware of our dot compare feature, we're uploading 2 documents, PDF, Word docs, or Excel spreadsheets. They're contained in this folder. All Jen has to do is click compare docs. And in just a moment here, she's bringing it up, we're going to receive an Excel output with these 2 documents lined up side by side. Anything in blue has stayed the same. Anything in red is different text, different terminology. So this left to right orientation is really important. And with it being in Excel, if we have really long documents, you can filter down the middle, down column C. Maybe I want to filter out what stayed the same. Only show me differences. You have that ability. So hopefully that was kind of a helpful scene setting. So Jen, now that we have this output, just kind of quickly walk us through what you're seeing and then what you do with this output. Maybe who else benefits besides yourself, as important as you are.
So this really makes it easy, this comparison, to compare, in this case, 2 different job descriptions. But in any instance, if you're comparing 2 revisions of the same document, or maybe you get an annual update of your terms and conditions and need to identify what exactly has changed so you can kind of attack that first, this is so valuable. Another way we use these kind of matrices is as a working document when we do our group level reviews. So since I'm at group, I will coordinate terms and conditions negotiations with all the divisions. And this becomes our starting point and our working document. I will give each division their own column. I will, put the reviewer's name and their division, and we will usually post it in either in a location where all others can review and see the comments, so that it makes our review meetings a lot more productive, because everybody's had a chance to go in and populate their own comments for the terms and conditions and updates and the red lines that they want to see. They also have the opportunity to see what other divisions have said, and a lot of times that they're so familiar with this format that they'll agree with such and such division, which again helps, because now we're not coming in cold to these meetings. We're coming into a review meeting to discuss questions, or perhaps 2 divisions have 2 different points of view on a term. And so we're hitting those relevant topics instead of just, going through each and every line. We can make a far more efficient use of our time because, having 9-10 divisions looking at one document, and you're meeting for 30 minutes to an hour every week or 2 weeks, you want to make that as to the point as possible, especially when the terms and conditions are usually 50 pages or so.
It's really well explained, Jen. There's a lot of value here, regardless if you're looking at job descriptions, if you're looking at T's and C's sets. I've seen people run these reports during redlining cycles. This was version 1, version 2. What were the puts and takes? We still have that redlined parent copy. What a great quick summary report we can share. Really, really nice. And I'll just maybe draw the audience's attention to row 18 here, stuck out to me in terms of this specific example. We can drill down and highlight, previously this contract admin was administering contracts by analyzing performance requirements and customer purchase order requirements. This customer service coordinator is administering customer accounts by reviewing service and or spare product requirements. Important distinctions there. I still need to read it and understand it, but I'm teed up now to see that, and to Jen's point, make comment, share this with others. So maybe Jen, great example. Let's bring this home. In a dark world where you didn't have this output, how might you accomplish this task otherwise?
So this task would again require 2 screens, hopefully, because if you tried to do it on one screen, you'd have to split it and it would be even more complicated. But you'd have each of the job descriptions up side by side, and you'd be scrolling through them, reading through, each of the points. But this is just so much easier to get to the the point of the matter, which is you're looking at these two job descriptions, trying to compare what is similar and what is different. And when you see them in this format, you can quickly, make some inferences about what the main differences are versus having to read through each of them side by side. And it's nice because Visible Thread will line things up in a way that it's intelligent. It's kind of what your eyes try to do without, scrolling both, side by side with both screens.
Excellent. Great use case. A lot of potential here. And then just for those who aren't aware, we see Jen's compared to PDF docs here. You can also do comparisons of Word documents. You can do comparisons of Excel spreadsheets as well. That's very popular with pricing tables, bills of materials, etc. Really nice, Jen. So Jen, let's finish with another really interesting search dictionary example, but instead of applying it to an NDA kind of Word document, we're going to apply it here to two term sets that you're reviewing. So why don't you kind of set the stage here? What kinds of documents are you looking at? To kind of show us that search dictionary. What are you trying to do before we get into that output?
Okay, so the next example, I have some terms and conditions documents. These are, from a customer website. And in this instance, we would be reviewing the customer's template and redlining accordingly. In this particular instance, we are going to be scrubbing against our company's FAR and DFARS dictionary, which outlines the company policy and position for each of the FARS clauses, and then any notes, any actionable items that the contracts person has to take, if you have to take exception, conditional acceptance, all of that is laid out. So that's what we'll be looking at.
Excellent. So why don't we select that terms review folder? Perfect. And yeah, into our dictionary search area. Kind of just like you did with the NDA, Jen, we don't have to go through every single line. Why don't you just expand on a couple of these categories? And I want the audience to see these search terms. They can be any word or, in this case, numerical code. So, Jen is looking for 52204-29, and it's grouped in a category. So you can have multiple buckets, whether it's accept, whether it's conditional accept, decline, etc. These are very customizable. Jen's customized it to her environment. So just want the group to understand that. And maybe if you scroll back up just to the top here for me, Jen, the final thing I want to touch on is Jen's looking at two documents right now, and they're related. They're both related contractual documents. You can apply one of these search dictionaries against 20 documents if you want to. So just keep that in mind. So thanks, Jen. I think that was helpful. So now let's generate that output that you always do and then review it just like we did with the dot compare.
So you're going to shred to Excel, do a category shred. You can, customize your settings for the shred. And then it will export to your downloads folder. Populates there. I'll pull it over from my screen. And so the first thing I do when I do a shred against our dictionary is to apply filters. So you can quickly see what clauses you've declined, what clauses you've conditionally accepted. It just makes it really quick to have a snapshot of, what are the main things you're going to be looking at. So in this document, you can see that there's only two clauses that we decline, and the notations for why we decline, they're self-deleting, so that's good news for us. We also have additional information here, whether or not it's applicable to FMS. or DCS. We've included that guidance as part of our FARS dictionary, and it's really easy to see. You see all the relevant information on one page, and it's filterable, which is even better.
So, and Jen, just before you reapply that filter, if you just cancel just for one moment, I want to emphasize something, and then we'll do that. It's a beautiful example where we see the clause. I do want the group to really see column G there in terms of Jen has inputted Parker guidance. It's, we not only find the FAR clause, but you're seeing the position, the prescriptive guidance. What do we need to do when we come across it? As well as these search dictionaries are not one-trick ponies. Often we see interlocking requirements or relevance. And so Jen's very cleverly used this dictionary to say, not only do we decline it in this case because it's self-deleting, and here's why, but this is also not applicable to foreign military sales. But if it was applicable, you'd see an X in that column. So thanks, Jen. I just wanted to make sure that for people that are a little less kind of well-versed in this than you are, helps to explain it. So now let's undo that filter just as you were about to do. And then maybe just kind of continue to explain what we see here. Thanks.
Yeah, so once it's expanded, you can see as we're going through this document, which is, outlines all the FAR flow downs for the contract, it makes it very easy to see what our position is. And we do have, a substantial amount of notes that helps the contracts person when they're reviewing a document know what position to take and whether or not to accept. And here we have the column for FMS applicability, DCS applicability, and we also include clauses that are mandatory flow downs to our suppliers. So that's huge, being able to identify the clauses that not only flow down to us Parker, but that we have to flow down to our sub-tiers. So in a very short amount of time, you can gather a lot of relevant information, which if you were doing this line by line, it would take a lot longer, and you'd be subject to user fatigue. By the end of the contract, your eyes could get blurry and you could be missing things. This way ensures that nothing is missed and the information is accurate.
Really nice, Jen, and it frees up that time to focus on the requirements, focus on those declines or those conditionals, or you're a hero for your subcontracts or supply chain colleagues. I'm assuming I was when I was able to quickly filter down. Here are your mandatory flow downs. It's a great example. Maybe just one logistical note I want to call out. People will see on the bottom of the screen here, because we shredded 2 documents, we see 2 tabs. So this is the 2A tab. Yep, if Jen jets over to the first tab, that's the other document. And we see that dictionary applying just as it did on the other. And so if you had 15 documents, you'd see 15 tabs. And then if you don't want a tab by tab output, you can receive everything in one tab. That's an option you can select when you shred it. Hopefully that was helpful there. And I think, Jen, you anticipated my question. How does this differ from before? Very manual, fatigue. There's room for error there. You might miss something. So it's a really, really great example. And as long as people understand these dictionaries are customizable, there's really a lot we can do here, and Jen's just a great example of a really thoughtful dictionary creator. So maybe let's do this. Jen, you're off the hook for now. You can stop sharing, and maybe we'll just conclude with some closing thoughts. Great examples. Maybe any other concluding thoughts, observations, impacts. How has automation, whether it's VT or otherwise, how has it made the contracts function within your team better, faster? Anything to add there? And maybe the second question I would ask is maybe any recommendations. If there's some contracts teams out there that are looking at this or other kind of features, any advice to share when you're thinking about dictionary creation, I'll let you run with that in any way you see fit.
Okay, I definitely think that this definitely revolutionizes how you review a contract. Starting from the first most simple way is a proposal or a spec. Any document really that requires some kind of shred. That was done before completely manually. There were CAs that would actually be retyping the contract or highlighting, copying, pasting into an Excel document, which is just an exorbitant amount of time. And that's not even the review process. That's just prepping the document to review it. So this software allows you to have a prep document in seconds. So that first function, just being able to complete a document shred, both a PDF or a Word document, is just such a huge value add. Also, the customizable dictionaries, I think that we've only touched the surface of their capabilities. I have a lot of dictionaries that I want to create. The NDA was the second dictionary, but we have so much additional guidance that I would like to build on, and also making customer specific dictionaries, because so much information is captured on the contract administrator's cheat sheets or notes. So if you have those notes already, you can simply populate them into a dictionary, and now instead of referring to your notes every time, you can have your notes populate on that document. And again, like with the example of the NDA checklist dictionary, as you're going through, since it does give redline instruction, and it does populate onto a Word document, you can actually redline right then and there, and then close out the the VT comment, make it go away like it was never there. And so you can complete your red line, making sure that you don't miss any of those relevant terms, close out all of your notes, and just like that, you have the document, the red line draft, ready to submit to the customer. So there's just so many different ways that you can use it, especially once you dig in, and you can find a lot of creative ways to help yourself when you're doing contract review.
Awesome. Great examples, great advice there, Jen. And then maybe just because you mentioned it, for those who were maybe wondering, if you have existing comment bubbles in a Word doc, for instance, or an NDA, when you export it, the VT bubbles will kind of coalesce around them. So you can even benefit from existing comment bubbles. But I digress. I can't help myself. Jen, thank you so much. I think this was really enlightening. You're a great user. They're great use cases. So thank you for sharing your experience. I'm sure we'll get a lot of questions, but thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Kyle.
Hi, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that demonstration. Jen couldn't make the Q&A today, but don't worry. I'm here to answer those questions. Keep them coming. I'm going to answer as many questions as I can between now and the end of the session. We're going to start with two really good questions from Martha. I'll address both of them in turn, one more specific, one more general. So Martha's asking, is the FAR dictionary specific to clauses contained in a specific contract, or does it include all FAR clauses? Great question. So Martha, I'm actually going to share my screen and share one of my dictionaries to help illustrate my point here. So what you were seeing there, that's a more general FAR clause dictionary. It's not specific to any one contract. So we should be seeing my VT Docs environment here. And in this case, this dictionary is looking for anything beginning with 5.2 followed by 3 digits, dash digits, or any DFARS clauses 252. So this wildcard feature allows you to look for any single FAR clause or DFARS clause or your favorite agency supplement. From there, we have it further broken down into these FAR clauses just require review. Not for any specific contract. This is just more of a policy we look at these, contracts accepts these, we don't accept these, so on and so forth. Now, these dictionaries, though, are very modular. If you wanted a specific contract dictionary, for instance, or maybe we're only looking for FAR Part 12 clauses because we're on a FAR Part 12 contract. Maybe we are only looking at cost plus type contracts, and we have all kinds of different FAR clauses for those cost reimbursable type efforts. You can do that. So I'm in my dictionary library here where you can really start to create, edit, modify these dictionaries. The other thing I want to call out here is you're not always having to create dictionaries from square one. You can clone dictionaries, essentially a save as. Say, you know what, I want this to be contract, or let's just call it cost type, sake of argument. And then you can start to delete, add, destroy, etc. Now, going to Martha's second part of the question, which is, how long did it take to set up these dictionaries? How long do you spend maintaining it? Dictionaries can be created very quickly, and I see them generally created in the following ways. And once again, I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, so I'm actually going to just go into my dictionary home screen here, and we're literally going to create one from scratch. I'm naming it, and if I just wanted to say visible thread, show me every single FAR clause in a contract, and I'm being purposely general here. I'm going to start it with 52. I'm going to toggle my wildcard feature on. This is casting a wider net. You know that FAR clauses follow the 52 dot 3 digits. So you're seeing that pound sign followed by one or more digits. Whoops. And now visible thread will find any numerical sequence that follows this patterns, aka FAR clauses. So in just kind of 15 seconds here, I've created a dictionary that will find me a FAR clause. Now, you want to add to that, and you can kind of continue to rattle off specific clauses here, or you should hopefully see this button here, import a dictionary. So you can do a mass upload of FAR clauses that are contained in a spreadsheet. So in Jen's case, she has an existing spreadsheet full of FAR clauses. That's that kind of playbook she was mentioning. I know a lot of contracts teams do. All you need to do is get that playbook into this Excel format, and you can do a mass upload in mere moments. Column B is the search term itself. You know, show me 252.225-7040. Category A is column A is the category. What bucket or group do I want it to sit in? Is it an all review? Is it a reject? Is it a decline? Is it an accept but review? That's all customizable, so we can copy and paste quite quickly. And then C is where you can include that guidance. What do we do with it? Why is it acceptable? Why don't we accept it? So on and so forth. You do a mass upload and you've got a dictionary in just moments. So maybe kind of closing thoughts there. When you're thinking about dictionaries, think about existing playbooks and policy docs that you already have internally. Most groups have that already. It's just a matter of getting it into a dictionary format, which my customer success team is here to help with as required. And then when it comes to maintaining it, you know, that of course depends. Generally, I see my contracts user groups just reviewing or refreshing their dictionaries once or twice a year. It doesn't require kind of constant ongoing maintenance. So really, really good questions, Martha. Hoping that addressed both of them adequately. If not, send me a Q&A again. And I can be reached at kyle.peterson@visible.com for any questions there. Another good question, and this is actually really good for those who joined just slightly late, which is totally okay. At the beginning of the webinar, Jen was showing a really interesting use case that doesn't speak to the FAR, isn't a comparison. I'm reviewing an NDA, for instance, and I want to do that in Word, but I want to continue to use that search dictionary feature of visible thread. Can you go back and kind of show how Jen did that? Happy to. This is a feature that not enough of my users use currently. So I'm really kind of hammering this point home lately. So if you're a contracts manager, contracts admin, you're reviewing NDAs, term sets, etc., you want to apply a certain search dictionary to that document and receive a Microsoft Word output as opposed to an Excel output, because we're contracts people, we like using Word. I have uploaded, in this case, a Word doc that's a master services agreement that I was actually redlining for Visible Thread. I'm applying my favored search dictionary here. So this is a dictionary, once again, for those who joined a couple minutes late. I can look for things like indemnity, without limitation, insurance, waivers of subrogation, overtime, and I'm simply grouping them into these categories. This is all customizable. Show me intellectual property, show me copyright, IP, etc. Now, you'll see top right, I'm circling it. Automatic effect, download annotated document. Click on that. Click generate document. You'll receive that Word document right back to you. And then we're actually using kind of native Word functionality. We're just using the comment bubble feature of Word. Kind of call out, there's an insurance hit. That's in my search term, bank. So we see insurance, and then we see also that guidance. This is all contained in the dictionary. And we can keep going. There's our indemnifications, what needs to happen without limitation. We want to strike this. And so I'm in that kind of striking mode. I could redline that and keep moving. So download annotated document. What are you always looking for in contracts? What requires certain action? What requires approval? You know, we're not going to strike things through for you. I'm a big believer in maintaining people's agency. There's times and places where we don't want to necessarily tweak language, but if we want to just get some of these pesky clauses highlighted for us, as well as include some kind of company guidance there, I want us thinking about custom search dictionaries and then downloading annotated documents. Just know it needs to be a Word input, so a Word source file to receive a Word source file back to you. If we were to upload PDF, we don't see that option because Visible Thread does not take PDFs and turn them into Word docs for you. So get those Word docs uploaded, get those annotated Word doc outputs to your hard disk. Good question. See, keep them coming. Really good so far. I do think kind of dictionary creation, we generally hear a lot of questions there. Good question on the dot compare feature. Can I compare, 8 different documents at once? So you can't compare 8 documents at once. You have to, it needs to be 1-to-1. So Rev 1 against Rev 2. So Visible Thread's essentially picking a baseline document, of a fulcrum, if you will, to compare the revision against. If you do more than one document, it doesn't understand kind of what the baseline is. So if you're in a situation where you have, 6, 7, 8 amendments to an RFP, to a solicitation, to a contract, what you can do, get those all into a folder in Visible Thread, but a dot compare takes just moments to create. Just compare 1 versus 2, 2 versus 3, 3 versus 4. So you're clicking compare docs 3 times, but it's pretty darn fast and certainly better than the alternative. Good question. And then I recommend you take those 3 Excel outputs and just combine them into one spreadsheet as just tabs. Tab 1, 2, and 3. Excellent. Good question. Right. Let's see. One other feature, or I guess question here, it's a good one, is, if I want to find something in a document, do I always need to create a search dictionary? Maybe I want to search across, multiple 5, 6, 7, 8 documents at once, but I don't necessarily need the entire documents spit out for me. Does this collection of documents contain this word or phrase? Visible thread do that without me having to create a dictionary every time? Really good question. The answer is yes, and let me show you. This is another feature that I think is relatively underutilized. Well, so what I want the group to see here is within this folder, so I'm selecting a folder itself, not one document, and we're going to pretend all of these documents, it's a combination of Word and PDF. I'm looking for them. Maybe I'm looking at a data call. We're trying to answer a data call. How many of our contracts contain this clause, this phrase, etc.? You can certainly go to dictionary search and apply a dictionary against it. But this is more of a one-off. It's more of a find case. So in that case, I want my users going into their discovery tab. So what's happening here? Visible thread has lined up these documents in the folder side by side. Add more docs if we wanted to, but it's going off of what's in the folder. And we see this heat map here. This is automatically generated, but I'm hoping the group is seeing this type to filter button. This is where you can search for any word, phrase that you're interested in finding, and maybe I'm looking for liquidated damages. Any of these documents contain that. I don't need to put that into a dictionary. And in this case, we see no hits. Okay, let me try something else. Let me search for intellectual property. And in this case, we do see hits. Not only will Visible Thread say, hey, Kyle, every single one of these documents contains intellectual property, we'll actually show you every variation of the idea, which is very powerful. We're going to show you intellectual property rights, even though I only search for intellectual property. Intellectual property protection. So every variation of the idea we'll grab for you, and then you can choose what you're interested in. I've selected these two here, and we should see over that we're now seeing, we're getting a quick snapshot of where and how intellectual property and intellectual property protection are appearing in these documents. More of a snapshot, more of a find. You don't need to create a dictionary. And then you can also shred and export this view, share with others to save it, to email it, what have you, if you want to kind of grapple with it in Excel. So that maybe takes me to another question that wasn't asked by the audience, but it's kind of a natural one here. People would say, well, okay, Kyle, so when would you use discovery versus dictionaries? The easiest way to think about it is discovery is great for kind of one-off. I'm looking for words like intellectual property, more of a data call. I don't have a list of potentially dozens of things I'm looking for. This is a little less consistent. This is a little looser. Show me anything related to intellectual property, Visible Thread, as opposed to a dictionary a bit more rigid by design. Show me every single time Visible Thread, copyright, background, work share, subcontract. I don't want to have to type into discovery all of these search terms one at a time, clicking enter. So if we want to do a mass kind of search against common and consistent search terms, be thinking dictionaries. Then is shredding contracts for FAR clauses. We are analyzing NDAs for a list of consistent search terms and hits that need to be reviewed, as opposed to, gee, in these 50 contracts, do any of them mention liquidated damages? That's more of a discovery use case. And then just to kind of bring this home, and from your dashboard, if you kind of log back in and say, where the heck did Kyle go? Dictionary search is here. Discovery is here. Up top. Good. Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions. So last call, if you have a question, drop it into that Q&A box. If not, I'll start to wrap things up here. So a couple key takeaways. One, as registrants, you will receive a recording of this event. Feel free to use that if you want a refresher, share it with your favorite colleagues internally. So be aware of that. We also have some upcoming in-person events as well. So for any of you who are in the DC area, we'll be hosting a customer forum on April 22nd. I think that might have gone live on the website today. Highly recommend you join. It's a half-day event, usually like an 8 to 12 type time frame. And my team will be there. Our CEO will be there. If you've got questions about the product, if you want to meet with me or one of my customer success managers and say, Kyle, I've got this problem. How the heck can we use Visible Thread to solve it? That's why we host those events. We want to meet in person and help solve those problems. So our event calendar, our webinar content continues to grow over time. So thank you so much for your time and attention. I know you're busy people. Hope you got a lot out of this. And then finally, you should receive a survey, or some of you will receive a survey. Would love to hear your feedback, positive or negative. We want to make sure that these events are actionable, they're relevant, and they're helpful. So if you like what you saw and want more of that, rate it accordingly. If this wasn't helpful, hopefully that's not the case. We also want to hear about that too, to make sure that we tweak and improve over time. So if you have a minute, please do consider filling out that survey. So thanks all again for your time. Talk to you next time.